After finding the risk level, now we are going to learn about the steps involved in controlling the risk in the topic 5. Hierarchy of risk control. Type of control measures. 1. Elimination, total removal of hazards. Examples. Elimination of hazards refers to the total removal of the hazards and hence effectively making all the identified possible accidents and ill health impossible. Instead of using a frame ladder to paint a high wall, we can use a long hang handle with brush. This eliminates the fall from height danger. 2. Substitution. Replace the hazards with lesser risk approach. Examples. Instead of using a ladder to gain access to high places, we can use MEWP to do the work. Even though using MEWP also has some risks, it is lesser than using a ladder. 3. Engineering control, physical means to limit the hazard by design. Barricade, guardrails, handrails, etc. Topic 5. Hierarchy of risk control is continued. Type of control measures. 4. Administrative control. System of work or work procedure that helps to reduce the exposure workers to the risk of falling. Examples. Permit to work systems, safe work procedures, toolbox meeting, developing fall prevention plan, sending workers for training, competent supervisor monitoring the work, display of warning signages, regular inspection of workplace. Type of control measures. 5. Personal protective equipment, PPE. Equipment used by for protection against the hazard. Personal fall protective equipment such as helmet, safety shoe, full body harness, lanyards, mask, etc. Topic 5. Hierarchy of risk control is continued. Now we discuss about the best risk control, which is elimination. Total removal of hazards. Elimination of hazards refers to the total removal of the hazards and hence effectively making all the identified possible accidents and ill health impossible. This is a permanent solution and shall be attempted in the first instance. If the hazard is removed, all the other controls, such as the use of fall prevention and protection system, workplace monitoring and surveillance, would no longer be required. In effect, the item is removed from the table of hazards. Examples of elimination include prefabricating wall frames horizontally before standing them up, using precast tilt-up concrete construction instead of concrete walls constructed in situ, and using paint rollers with extendable handles rather than working on a ladder. Now we're going to learn more details about each of the steps in hierarchy of risk control. Elimination, total removal of hazards. How to control the risk. Eliminate fall from height. Details about the hierarchy of risk control continued. Elimination, total removal of hazards. Example. The canteen committee identifies that a particular item on the lunch menu contains an ingredient with a short shelf life. The committee is concerned that the item may become unfit for consumption prior to sale. To avoid the risk of a food poisoning incident, the item is removed from the menu. Details about the hierarchy of risk control continued. Substitution. This involves replacing the hazard by one that presents a lower risk. With substitution, we are identifying a hazardous substance or piece of equipment and substituting a substance or piece of equipment that is not hazardous. Example. For example, by using mobile elevated work platform, MEWP, instead of ladders for reaching high places. The risk level is lowered as MEWP generally provides a higher level of fall protection than ladders. Another example is instead of a solvent-based paint, use a water-based paint. Details about the hierarchy of risk control continued. Engineering control. Engineering controls are physical means that limit the hazard. These include structural changes to the work environment or work processes or erecting barriers to prevent the worker from being exposed to the hazard. Example. An example of an engineering control includes edge protection, such as using guardrails at open sides to prevent persons from falling over. These guardrails are physically stop the worker from falling into the excavation. Mechanical ventilation. Details about the hierarchy of risk control continued. Engineering control. Examples: machine guarding, noise enclosure. Details about the hierarchy of risk control continued. Administrative controls. These are procedures or instructions to reduce the exposure to a hazard. Administrative controls are designed to change the ways people work, and examples include procedural changes, signs and warnings. It is thus a useful means to limit the frequency and duration of exposure of persons to hazards and the number of persons involved in the task. Example: safe work procedure, toolbox meeting, training, providing signages. Details about the hierarchy of risk control continued. Safe work procedures. Administrative controls. Safe work procedures, SWPs, are the most common form of administrative controls in workplaces. It is a set of systematic instructions on how work can be carried out safely. Using information obtained from risk assessment, a set of SWPs should be developed for various work activities. Details about the hierarchy of risk control continued. Personal protective equipment. Personal protective equipment, PPE, should be used only as a last resort, after all other control measures have been considered. It is a short-term contingency during maintenance or repair, or as an additional protective measure. The effectiveness of PPE as a control measure is dependent on the correct equipment being chosen, fitted and worn properly at all times when required by users. Example: safety harness with double lanyard and shock absorber, safety shoes, safety goggles, safety helmet, etc. Details about the hierarchy of risk control continued. Use of personal protective equipment. PPE should be selected taking into consideration the following factors: the type of hazard, areas of the body that require protection, the degree of protection required, ease of use, comfort and convenience, compatible with other PPE, reliability, and ease of maintenance. The PPE is assessed to be suitable and adequate for the persons. Persons issued with the PPE must be trained and possess the skill and knowledge to use the equipment/system safely. Why PPE is the last line of defense? What is the issue in the picture? Look. Where is his hook is secured? Wow! Unsafe practice is hooked to improper anchor points. Now it is question time again. What is the hazard in the picture? A. Falling from height. B. Falling objects. C. Both A and B. Now we going to learn another important step in risk management in Step 3. Implementation. Obtain employer, management approval. Communicate the hazards and their controls. Implement control measures. Audit, regular inspections. Obtain employer, management approval. Get the approval. Communicate the hazards and their controls. The nature of risks. Any measures, safe work procedures implemented. Means to minimize, eliminate the risks. Duties and responsibilities. Implement control measures. The employer should, as far as is practicable, implement the recommended risk control measures as soon as possible. An action plan should be prepared to implement the measures. The plan should include a timeline of implementation and responsibilities of persons implementing the safety and health control measures. Now we're going to learn about how hazards and risks can be communicated in the workplace. Risk communication. Instruction and training. Persons who are exposed to the risk should be provided with sufficient and adequate information, instruction and training so that they have the skill and knowledge to perform the work safely. It should help them understand the nature of hazards to which they are exposed, the risk of injury associated with the task, the control measures that are needed, including SWPs and the use of PPE, the proper usage and maintenance of equipment, such as performing inspection to ensure that equipment are in good condition before use, and procedures to follow in the event of an emergency such as rescue, accident, or injury. Now we're going to learn another step in risk management in Step 4. Record keeping. Must be available upon request. During the audits. Ministry of Manpower officials request. Keep for at least 3 years. Risk register. Risk assessment. Implementation records. communication records, audit, inspection records, review records. Risk assessment records must be kept available for a period not less than 3 years.